Hello my dear students, I hope you have enjoyed my previous lecture and you have now a clear idea about how our immune system is actually working, our adaptive immunity or innate immunity and all these cells how are actually associated and how they are taking action when any foreign substance may enter in your body. So, today I will take you much more deeper, I will tell you that how hypersensitivity reaction actually happening in your body, then what are the types of hypersensitivity, then how immune stimulation is happening, also the suppression, and also I will focus on the various bacterial vaccine and also the toxics. So, let me tell you first that hypersensitivity. What is hypersensitivity? So, it is a increased reactivity or increased sensitivity in the animal body to an antigen to which it has been previously exposed. Follow this word, previously exposed. Previously your body was exposed by the foreign substance, again your body today again your body got exposed with a foreign substance. So, your body will react against these things, your body will be react again against that foreign substance. So, when it will increase its reactivity, or sensitivity, then we call it as an hypersensitivity, allergy. Many of time you have seen that some people having allergy with some perfume or some kinds of chemicals. Why? Previously his or her body might have exposed with the same chemical. So, the term is oftenly used as a synonym as a for allergy, which describes state of altered reactivity to an antigen. Antigen might be anything, it might be a virus, bacteria, pathogen or any foreign substance. So, what are the causes of this hypersensitivity? One of the main causes is the autoimmunity, that is reaction against the self antigens. Many of time this is true, self antigens from our body's antigen we are also getting some hypersensitivity reaction against various kinds of microbes, then reaction against non microbial that is environmental antigens, and some kinds of chemicals also, which is actually falling under this category, environmental antigens. So, if I tell you in detail about the types of hypersensitivity, so there are, we can say there are 4 different types of hypersensitivity. So, type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. Type 1 actually it is mediated by IgE. I hope you can recall my previous lecture where I have mentioned that IgE, IgM, IgA, IgD etc. I mentioned. So, what are these things? These are nothing but immunoglobulins. So, because of the presence of these immunoglobulins, if they take some action, then this kinds of reaction will happen. So, type 2 it is happening because of the IgG or IgM, that is cytotoxic, and immune complex mediated response for response it is actually happening in type 3, and T cell mediated response producing the type 4 hypersensitivity. How much time it will take? For type 1 it is onset within 1 hour, very quick, very fast. You have seen somebody is actually exposed by some chemical and continuously he is getting some sneezing. So, IgE is actually working here, due to that within 1 hour he is getting some response, but in this case for other cases it will take much more long time. Examples I have mentioned here, various kinds of diseases, but in reality see our human body is actually adapted. Our human body actually got adapted by its long history and long encounter with a lots of environmental factor, microbes or we can say pathogen. Due to that your body actually got trained. Now, if you train your immune system properly, you will be able to see that your immune system will be not doing such kind of hypersensitivity, some allergic action you are not getting. Okay. So, for that you have to train your immune system. Nowadays, it is the era of machine learning. In machine we are actually training some machine about with some data. Similarly, in the era of 21st century we also have to train our immune cells, so that they can learn which is our self protein or which is non self protein, so that allergic reaction whatever the disease I also mentioned you can get away. But yes, another thing you see, our human we are actually increasing our number, and in the next generation, one by one generation is coming, with new generations, new mutations are actually happening. Due to that, some people or some offsprings are actually getting good proper properties, but others are actually not getting such kind of updated properties, and due to that this hypersensitivity actually happening. So, another term I have to mention that immune stimulant, these are also known as the immunostimulant as a substance, drugs or nutrients that stimulate the immune system by inducing activation or increasing the activity of its component. What I was actually telling you, if you take some immune stimulant, obviously your the immune system it will work much more aggressive way or much more better way, it will induce the activation. Okay. So, immune stimulation refers to the stimulation of the immune system by an external source. After COVID-19, you have seen lots of people are taking lots of immune stimulant. Why? Just to train your body, so that it can get activate and it can function properly to the foreign substances. Okay, but yes, there are some problem if your body is not properly previously exposed, or if it is not compatible. In that case, your body will take it in a negative manner and you will be getting some allergy. So, you have to make a balance between the allergic reaction and taking some immune stimulant. So, the stimulation can confer a protective effect against various kinds of microorganisms. I hope you can remember during COVID-19 pandemic, we have taken lots of things like KADA, one kind of booster, immune booster. As well, immune stimulation shows promise as a means of the obtaining immune response to conditions such as cancer also. Conventionally, the immune system is actually stimulated into producing antibodies or other infection fighting constituencies in a response of the infection. There are two main categories of immune stimulant. What are these things? One is the specific immune stimulant. It provides antigenic specificity such as immune response, such as vaccines or any kinds of antigens. Another type is like non-specific immune stimulant. They act as a irrespective of the antigen specificity to the augmented immune response of the other antigens or stimulants component of the immune system without antigenic specificity, such as adjuvants or non-antispecific or non-specific immune stimulant. So, we can categorize in this two way. Now, see, if your immune system is so much good, so much it is a fine immune system, and you are so happy that if any microbe may enter in your body will take action against those microbes, you are so happy with it. But for example, if you ever that is encountered with accident and you have to change or any or you have to transplant any part of your body. So, your immune system will understand the foreign the transplant organ, it is a foreign substance, it will attack and it will not affect your transplant organ, and it will create a problem to your body. So, that is why in some time we also have to suppress our immune system, but suppression is also happening in some other ways also. So, in definition, what is suppression? Suppression is the suppression of the body's immune system and its ability to fight infection. Okay. So, immune suppression may be delivered by induced with drugs or in preparation with bone marrow or other kinds of organ transplant, whatever I was actually mentioning you, to prevent rejection of the donor tissue. You see, if I tell my experience, few days back, one of my relative, she had some transplant in her body. So, but the doctor might have done some mistake. So, we have seen there are lots of huge inflammation. After that, new drugs was given to the my relative, and the inflammation actually reduced. So, why the inflammation was actually happened? This is because immune system actually not accepted that organ as a part of our body. Okay, that is why it is actually releasing entire all the immune cells, they are storm, cytokine storm, and all those inflammation is actually happening, and your entire immune system come to the picture. It is actually not accepting, it is actually thinking that it is a foreign substance, we have to kill this, otherwise our own body cells will die. That is why doctors are actually giving immunosuppressant. So, it may also result from certain diseases like AIDS that is a lymphoma, and from any kinds of or from other kinds of anti-cancer drugs also. So, now what are the causes of immunosuppression? So, one of the causes is the by number of systematic illness. This include, but not in the list. Let me tell the inform you the list of diseases like diabetes mellitus. You will be observing those patients having diabetes mellitus, their body or their immune systems will be not so much strong. Okay. Some other diseases people also like renal or hepatic failure or infectious infection of the central nervous system or systematic that is a purpose or this thing called erythemas or rheumatoid arthritis. So, in those diseases you will be observing their immune system is actually not so much strong. Okay. They are very easily got affected by cough and other kinds of that is a illness. So, the answer is why it is happening? This is happening because of the immunosuppression. So, in addition of the illness, certain pharmaceuticals are also associated with this suppression like corticosteroids, immunoglobulins or antimetabolites or biological alkaline agents or ionizing radiation. These are also responsible in your immunosuppression. So, you have to understand that you have to make a balance between immunity booster, boosting your immunity, make your immunity strong, and if you are doing some organ transplant, that time it should be not done by you, but it should be done by doctor. The doctor will suppress your immune system, so that your body get adapt with the organ, the transplant organ. Another thing I will to tell you that you should be avoiding these things. If you are fit and fine, if your doctor has not prescribed this thing, do not take these things, or you should try to avoid whatever the diseases I have mentioned in my previous slide. You should not have this kinds of diseases. You can try your best to save yourself from those diseases, because your immune system will be get suppressed. There are lots of disadvantages. I am telling this concept in the context of that is in the medical background, okay, medical benefit. If your immune system is not strong, a new virus may enter in your body anytime. Your own immune defense system, it will not able to counter that particular new virus or new microbe. So, you have seen during COVID time also lots of patients actually died because of their weak immune system. So, you have to take care of these things. Now, I was mentioning you to boosting our immune system, we can take vaccines. Now, one by one I will enter into the vaccines, bacterial vaccines. So, bacterial vaccines containing the killed or attenuated bacteria that activate our immune system. My next lecture I will tell you more about the vaccine in details. I will tell you only about the vaccine in detail, how vaccines are working and what are the way you can make your own vaccine. For a disease, if you want to discover a new vaccine, if you want to become a vaccine scientist, my next lecture is very important for you. You should not miss this. So, antibodies are actually built against those particular bacteria, and those antibodies actually prevents this bacteria's infection later. As an example, bacterial vaccines is the tuberculosis vaccines. If you take a vaccine for tuberculosis, for your rest of your life, you will not get encountered by the tuberculosis. Here are some examples of various kinds of bacterial vaccines. Some diseases like that is pneumococcal or cholera or meningococcal or typhoid. So, those kinds of various diseases, these are various these are various our vaccines are actually available. I have some other names also, I think. For typhoid also we have now vaccine, tetanus also we have giving the Toxoid, and for anthrax vaccines are also actually developed, and also it is I already mentioned for typhoid. These are the name of their the brand name by which it is actually available in the market. So, but yes, I would like to mention that vaccine development is not a very easy task. It will take very difficult, and because vaccines are very vaccines are actually composed by the protein, and proteins are actually bigger molecules. So, it is not easy to administer, it will take much more longer time to develop those vaccines. So, that is why you will be observing that what are the drugs are actually being approved by FDA, the number of drugs versus number of vaccines. Vaccines number is actually much more lesser than drugs. So, another concept I will tell you about the toxoids. So, what is toxoids? So, it is an inactivated toxin which that is host toxicity has been suppressed either by chemical or heat treatment or other kinds of protein, typically the immunogenicity are actually maintained. So, toxins are actually secreted by the bacteria, whereas the toxoids are actually altered from a toxin, or toxoids are not secreted by the bacteria. So, let me tell you more. For example, you can see this, this is a toxin. So, this is a toxin moiety. So, if you do some chemical modification, if you gives heat or other thing, if you give chemical modification. So, this particular moiety, it actually eliminated. So, the remaining things are actually presents. So, this will work as a antigenic that is a determinant. So, here is a very famous tetanus toxoid. So, where we are actually using toxoids are also used as a vaccine, because they induce the immune response to original toxin or increase the response to antigen, since the toxoids makers or the toxins are actually that is makers are actually preserved. So, tetanus vaccines are tetanus toxoids are so much popular, because it will that is develop your it will make some antibodies for your body, so that in future if any bacteria is entering in your body, it can fight. So, there are toxoids for the prevention of also diphtheria, tetanus or botulism. These are caused by some bacteria also. So, the most often toxoids are actually tetanus toxoids I have already mentioned, but diphtheria derived toxoids and other proteins are also we are actually using occasionally. And these carrier proteins have been used frequently for the pertussis and the influenza vaccines. Toxoids are as a vaccine because they induce, already I have mentioned this part. And if I tell you the story, so tetanus toxoid, its molecular weight you can see, it is very big molecular weight, 1,50,000 Dalton, and it has 106 that is amino group. So, it is a very big molecule. That is why it is not easy to take that is orally, or if you take orally, so there will be problem with the bioavailability. So, generally you can give this toxoid as an injection, and you also have to maintain its temperature and other things in a very perfect manner. So, I have mentioned here that toxoids are modern vaccines commonly obtained from the incubated toxins and formaldehyde at the 37 degree centigrades. Here is the picture or the process by which we can actually develop. So, this is the stock seed stock, pre-incubated scale up will be happening here, large scale fermentation we will do, we will use some microbe, we will add our nutrients and other things, so that our large scale fermentation may happen. Then we will do the vaccine purification and activation, and in one side we will be getting the purified the toxin formulation, and whole culture activation we will be getting the bacterial toxin formulation. We are using these things for our work. So, how toxoids are actually working? So, these toxoids are working in a very systematic manner. Just a second, yeah, how they are actually working. So, you can see, so bacteria secreting toxins or harmful chemical. So, we have seen in this picture that one bacteria and it has some chemical. So, you have to culture that bacteria in that medium, and then when it will release it toxin, that is toxoids, you have to inactivate those with heat or chemical. See, if you give heat, some of the molecules or some of the bonds will be get broken, and then those that is harmful elements you can eliminate. So, whatever the good elements are present, you can take those things. Then you can inject injection of the entire dose of a vaccine, that is primary vaccination. If after giving the first vaccine, if it is actually not working, in that case you have to take another. This is actually called as a booster dose. I hope after COVID-19 you are very much clear about the booster dose because for example, Covishield or Covaxin in India, those two vaccines are so much popular. For Covishield and Covaxin, you have to take 2 doses, because after taking the first dose, it is not sufficient to make enough antibody, or it will not sustain. There are lots of reasons, I will not go into the detail. You have to take twice. So, that is why you have to take the booster dose. Then induction of the after that induction of the second booster dose. So, it will make the specific immune response and then protection against the real infection. So, it is very simple. I do not think there will be any confusion. You have bacteria, you have taken the bacteria has released some toxin, you have taken the toxin, you have removed the harmful part, whatever the things actually remain here, you have taken that remaining part and you have injected that part to the body. Here I have another picture that is nanosomes and bacterial toxin, how nanotoxides are actually formed. Okay. So, you see nanotechnology is nowadays very much popular. Why? I hope in just few minutes back I have mentioned that there are problem with the bioavailability. If you take some protein, if you make some toxoid or some protein as a vaccine, the problem with the bioavailability, because big molecules have a problem in our in the penetration, or we can say that is if you take orally, there will be problem with the absorption. Okay. So, that is why you have to take through injection, but if you make some nano formulation, in that case it will be very easy for the absorption and distribution of the throughout the body. That is why that is a nano sponge people are actually so much preferring. So, you have to prepare some nano sponge and bacterial toxin. So, you have to remove the that is harmful part and then you have to bring those toxin into your nano sponge. So, this nanotoxide is actually ready, then you have to do the vaccination. For example, they have done one experiment, there was two different rat. So, one rat was actually vaccinated with the nanotoxide, okay. Another was actually not vaccinated with any kind of nanotoxide. When bacteria was exposed in both the that is a rat, this rat got infection and it has not got any kinds of infection. So, this is how your toxoid is actually working. So, I will suggest that you may prefer these things in a very systematic manner, because there are lots of diseases we can solve today by using this technology, but the problem is that its big molecular size. And the second problem is that the challenges in computational challenges. Now, sir, what is computational challenges? You see, today to design a toxoid or a vaccine, how you will design? You will be taking the help of the computational tools, bioinformatics tools, that is we call as an in silico vaccine design. Okay. So, we have to do molecular docking between your some human cells or your the antigen whatever you have prepared. So, for that you need a very that is a hi-fi or very strong computational system, because to do the calculation it will take so much long time. So, that is why for today it is a big challenge, but HPC, that is high performance computing, it is actually evolving in a very nice manner. So, in future I am pretty sure that you will be not getting so much diseases, because we will have the solution. Because of the advancement of HPC, that is high performance computer, we can develop lots of new toxoids by using the in silico or computational tools. So, best of luck to all of you. Today we have learned that is a hypersensitivity, how it is actually happening, various types of hypersensitivity, and how you can stimulate your immune system, and what is immune suppression, why it is actually important. I also have told you that bacterial vaccine, and then I have mentioned about the toxoid. So, in my next lecture I will tell you in detail about the vaccine. So, do not miss my next lecture. I will tell you what is vaccine, type, generation, and how will administer vaccine, how vaccines are working, development, how you can develop your own vaccine for COVID-19, yes, and how you can store, and different types of difference between the vaccine and drugs, antitoxin and history of the antitoxins. So, that is it for today. Thank you all of you for joining today's lecture. God bless you all, and do not miss my next lecture. In next lecture I am going to tell you in detail whatever I have discussed on today, that toxoid, vaccines in very little bit. In next lecture I will tell you in detail how vaccines are actually working, and how you can save your body from various viruses, and how you can make your own vaccine for COVID-19. So, thank you all of you. Do not miss my next lecture. See you in my next lecture. God bless.